Alright, world. This will be the first time I've ever done anything like this. I don't normally post shit. But I'm going to tell you a story. One that might hit you in the boo-boo. I know it did me. So, Hurricane Helene. That was a pretty intense ride for everybody here in the South. Destroyed a lot of stuff. We didn't know what was going to happen in my house. Really, we were just sitting there waiting for it to be over. To us, it was just rain. I mean, yeah, it was windy, but for us, it was just rain. When we woke up Friday morning, though, what was supposed to happen before the hurricane is we had planned a camping trip. Hurricane hit. Obviously, we're not going to go. But the hurricane ended on Friday. And that Friday was such a gorgeous day. I mean, the sky was absolutely clear. The air was fabulous. I mean, you could breathe deep and it just felt great. Nobody had power, so we were like, hey, why don't we just take the gear that we have ready and let's hit the trail. Let's go ahead and take the Jeep out, drive out to where the campsite is, and hell, if we have to clear some trees getting there, oh well. Plus, we need firewood, so works for us. So that's exactly what we did. And we got out to this private property, and it's a crazy thing that happened next, because I couldn't give you a why. There's so many whys, but we won't get those answers. But while we were out there, the private property we were on was owned by a woman who she didn't live there. She just let us use it. She was a wonderful woman. I mean, for the purpose of what she was doing, she's wonderful. They had this guy that for generations, I guess, has been the caregiver and hunter for that property. His name was Paul. Well, when we were setting up our campsite, it was starting to get dark, and my wife had a new gun. It was an SAR-12. It's like an automatic shotgun. And she'd only fired it once before, and it was brand new. Still had the factory gum on it, the oil from the factory. It needed to be cleaned, but she had put a round in it, and it didn't cycle through the magazine. So we went ahead and cleaned it up and put a hotter load in it, thinking that the problem was just that it was, needed to be cleaned up. It was a new rifle. Needed broke in. So that night, before the sun went down, my wife fired 2 rounds into the sand bank across the little creek that we were camped at. Well, apparently, Paul and his crew was out riding around on 4-wheelers, heard the shots, and they was going to investigate. Well, he met my son and my daughter's fiance up the hill before they got down to where we were. And from my son's testimony, they came up, said we weren't supposed to be there. We're on the wrong part of the property, which we had permission to be anywhere on the property. As a matter of fact, the words from the owner was, treat this as if it's your property. So we were allowed to be anywhere on the property we wanted. But he came down there, and as I was walking up, keep in mind, somebody's coming down on 4-wheelers. As I'm walking up, my son comes running ahead of them saying, Dad, there's a guy here that's saying we're not allowed to be here. I said, don't worry, Charlie, I'll deal with it. We're allowed to be here. We're where we're supposed to be. And I didn't have any weapons on me at that time, so I looked at my wife and I said, here, just let me take the rifle. And I started walking up the hill, and I was carrying the rifle on my side. It was a brand new rifle, so she hadn't even put a sling on it, sights, anything really. So I was just carrying it by the pistol grip on my side, keeping it pointed down. Well, as I approached this man, he was probably about 20 yards away. He just got off his 4-wheeler and started walking straight towards me, just head down, wasn't saying anything. And it was getting kind of dark. Like I said, the sun was going down. So I thought it was Paul, but I wasn't really sure. I mean, 3 people on 4-wheelers, they're not supposed to be there. this guy's saying we're not allowed to be there, so like it didn't make sense of why he was coming down to us. So I said, "Are you Paul?" And he didn't say anything. He just kept bull walking towards me. I said, "Are you Paul?" Nothing. Just kept bull walking. And as soon as he got up to me, he grabbed my shotgun and tried to take it away from me. Now, I don't know what world that seems like a logical choice, but I learned a lot about myself that day. I learned I didn't want to kill anybody. And so, when we struggled for that shotgun and I got loose, I didn't point it at him. And he got a hold of me again. And when I struggled and I got loose again, he didn't like that. And he started punching me in the head. But you know what I learned? I didn't want to kill anybody. And again, I didn't shoot him. Well, the third time he got a hold of me, he had backed me up at this point, kind of down the hill, and I fell back. As I fell back, he ended up getting the back end of the shotgun, getting control of it away from me, and he was spinning it around on me. And as I watched the barrel come around and get right about here, my hand was on the pistol grip. I could barely keep my finger off the trigger as it is, and something told me, pull that trigger, because that barrel was coming, and I did not want to die today. That's what I felt. I did not want to die. So I pulled that trigger, and because of where the shotgun was coming and I was fighting for it, my hand just happened to be over the ejection port. So, boom! And I could see the stovepipe shell. But I felt like I was staring at that shell for so long. And I could hear this, just a bunch of snaps. And then everything was just ring. And when I kind of came to or realized, whoa, wait, it's still going on, I went to grab the guy and he was gone. He was just gone. And so I went to stand up and I saw this man that I'd never seen before. Never seen him before. Take one step and then like a puppet, cut the strings on him. He just dropped. And I started to stand up and I looked back and I didn't see the guy. And I saw my daughter's fiance on his knees holding his chest. This kid was like 21 years old. He was just starting his life. And he gave his life protecting me. Because what happened was, when that shotgun went off, he drew his gun. And so did my son, who was standing right next to him. They both drew their guns. And Nick pulled the trigger, and he shot that man in the head, killing him. But that guy that I'd never seen before, he opened fire on my son and on Nick. Shot Nick like 6 times, once in the chest, once in the neck. Those were pretty much the life-ending wounds. He got shot in the arm and the legs, and my son got shot in the arm. Luckily, those people, they weren't very well versed in self-defense. And what I mean by that is, you don't use ball ammo if you're trying to be defensive. Had they have used hollow point, I'm pretty sure Nick wouldn't have been able to return fire. But he did. And with his last energy, he returned fire, killing the man that killed him and shot my son. And I remember running up to Nick, and I put my hand on his heart wound. I was trying to stop the bleeding, but the problem was there was no bleeding. And I looked at his eyes, and for just a second he was still there. And it was very, very hard for me to watch him go. And I told him I was sorry. And you know, I stood up after that and I ran over to that man that attacked me, who at that time, his wife, who allowed him to come do this to me, was there. So apparently she was riding on the four-wheelers. I don't know where the hell she came from. But she was there holding him. It just knelt down next to him with his head in her lap. And I remember dropping down next to him. And I yelled at her, "Help him. Help him. Why did he do this?" And then this kid, I don't even know where this kid came from. This little 5-year-old kid comes out of nowhere and screams at me, "You killed my daddy." No, I didn't. Your daddy got himself killed. And boy, I'm sorry for you that you're going to grow up without a dad. Because that's exactly why Nick shot him. Because something about Nick that you should know. When he was a little kid, I think he was 7, and keep in mind, I didn't have the chance to learn Nick, to get to know him the way I wish I could have. But from what I understand, he was 7 years old when his dad died. And then this other man came into his life and assumed the role and did a damn good job of helping Nick with the loss of his father. So when Nick saw his fiance, the woman that he loved, father, about to die, he gave his life. He didn't know he was going to. But I guarantee you he would have done it again anyway. If he knew he was going to die, he'd have done it again. Nobody should go without their father. Not if there's an option. So to that kid that said that I killed his dad, buddy, I didn't. It was a terrible mistake that your dad made. And unfortunately, he won't be able to learn from this mistake. But you can. Mistakes are okay. You can learn from them. Doing the same wrong thing over and over and over and not learning anything, well, that's just unacceptable. So unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. Because this was pretty traumatic for me, as you can imagine. Having to look at my daughter every day. As beautiful as she is. Knowing that I took the future away from her. Because I was the one that Nick sacrificed his life for. And she doesn't blame me. She's angry, but she doesn't blame me. So, I had a friend bring me some psychedelic mushrooms. This is where it gets kind of crazy because I've had drug problems my whole life, except about 10 years ago, I cleaned them up. And I found a way to use herbal remedies, nootropic mushrooms, reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, the average ones. And I basically started microdosing myself, but I found benefits in mushrooms that have been amazing. And one of my friends said, you need to try psychedelic mushrooms because it was months later, and I was still going through hell. I haven't slept since October of last year. And what I mean by that is, unless I have exhausted myself for days, people, I don't sleep for more than 2 hours, maybe three a night. So he said, try some psychedelic mushrooms. Well, I did, people, and I had a lot of them. I needed a good reset, you can say. So I took a lot of them. And it was with him as my chaperone. Don't worry, I had plenty of chaperones that night. And I felt so unsafe. And I felt like that family, we had heard that they were threatening to come get us, and they were looking for the black Jeep because we drove a black Jeep, and there was all kinds of Facebook posts about it, and it brought in a lot of fear. And that was coming out real bad when I was tripping. And the way that we handled that is, of course, they didn't give me a loaded firearm, but they gave me a rifle to hold on to. And it was one of Nick's rifles, because the sheriff's department, in their infinite wisdom, that day, we were going camping, so we took all of our guns, which we don't have a whole lot, but we had guns, and we were going to shoot them that next day on Saturday. Well, they completely disarmed us when they took the police report. So we had to go home with no guns. Well, we stopped by my daughter's apartment and picked up some of Nick's guns and took them back to our house to hold on to until probate. But that night we were sitting there, and I could feel an energy that I had never felt before. And all of a sudden I realized I was communicating with that energy. And it was my perception of Nick. And I was able to talk to Nick's energy. It wasn't a conversation with words. It was something else. And it just completely altered my life in so many ways. One, I've been an atheist my whole life until this event, because what happened was too unreal to be just a hallucination. So Nick told me exactly what I said earlier, that he would have given his life to protect me that day. There's no way he was going to watch his Nady, his baby girl, his baby, excuse me. There's no way he was going to watch her dad die and watch that happen right in front of her. No way. So he told me it was okay. And he told me just to give him a hug. And I wasn't even thinking, and I squeezed. My eyes were closed. And I was holding the rifle, but it wasn't a rifle at that moment. I could feel the spine of his back. And I was just in the corner of the room, hugging him so tight, sitting down in there, just hugging. And it was so intense, people. I mean, everything was so real at that moment. And I just started sobbing so uncontrollably, because for that whole time I had been in this tense moment of just stress and fear and anger and sadness and guilt and shame and all of it. And in that moment, Nick had me, and he told me it was okay. It's all right, man. I got you. Well, my wife saw this, and she had been with my son, which, keep in mind, this is another one, my youngest son, and he's 19. He was also going through some shit that night, and he was also tripping, and my wife was his chaperone. But they were on the other side of the house, through like a a doorway and they had been talking. And my wife comes running up to me and she goes, "Baby, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I tried with every breath I could to tell her it was okay, but I couldn't get it out. And I just kept telling her, I've never been more okay in my life. I have never felt more wrapped in love and more wrapped in security and just knowing that everything is good. It's where it's supposed to be. And I told her Nick was there with me, and that's how I felt. And I was just hugging Nick, and I could feel his spine. I could feel him. I could feel that little guy. And she started bawling, and she couldn't catch her breath. And she said, "Baby, you got to listen to your son." My wife's not tripping. Keep that in mind. She's sober. You got to listen to your son. Because your son just saw Nick come up to you and tell you that it's okay. And then give you a hug. And he could see the glow around you in the corner. How does that happen? How does that happen? Because I don't know. So it gets worse, people. After that, I found the strength to grow. And my wife and I decided, you know what, we're going to open up a nootropic mushroom company. I'm going to start growing lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, and turkey tail myself. And I'm going to start helping people until the day they make psilocybin legal. And then I'm going to help people that way, because this works. It flipped my life around. But why am I still messed up today? Because I'm losing faith in humanity. I moved my family after that whole deal. We needed a change. We had to have a change. We didn't go far, just moved up to Saluda, North Carolina.